Opening your heart and your home to children in foster care is a challenging yet really rewarding experience. At Clark County Family Services, we have on any given day over 3,000 babies, children, and teens, sibling groups that all need loving homes, supportive caregivers. Today, I'm joined on our Foster Leader podcast by two of my most favorite coworkers at Clark County Family Services. These are incredible people who are on our foster parent recruitment team. So today, I welcome Lynne and Beth. Thanks, ladies, for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. So I have a good feeling of what you all do on a daily basis, but let's give our viewers an opportunity to learn a little bit about you, your role at Family Services, and then maybe what brought you into this line of work. Lynne, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm Lynne James. I've been with Clark County since 1996. Oh my God, just to say that. Oh, that's 29 years.
Lynne, that's amazing. Thank you for your service. 29 years, you've probably learned a thing or two in this line of work.
Yeah, so I started at Child Haven. Did a couple years over there, went into intake where we took the abuse neglect calls, and where we actually, at that time back then, we received the kids as well, where we processed when the kids came in. So I got to not only take the report, but a lot of times I got to see the kids if it wanted us to bring them into protective custody. So I believe my ability to be able to do it so long, I do have a true passion for it. And because I love it is why 29 years, it don't even feel like 29 years. I just love what I do, and I'm grateful to be able to do it. Even though my journey started in 96, that wasn't the beginning with the department, because I also have a personal story entering foster care in 1985.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your personal story with foster care?
It's okay. Yeah, so I entered foster care with a baby at 14 years old due to abuse, neglect, and my mom drug exposed. So entering as a teen was hard because I was like, I know what I'm doing. I got this. I've been surviving. So my passion stems from knowing both sides, experiencing it personally and being able to work it. And the passion comes from wanting to see children genuinely be placed in good homes, because I will say I only had one home.
That's amazing, Lynne, and thank you for sharing. I think what you bring to the table is that lived experience as being in foster care. And so, like you said, you do know both sides, and having one foster home, that's really special.
Oh, I like to say, like, she had to make that commitment, right? When 5 other homes, my caseworker was like, well, 5 other people said no. I'm like, okay. And then she was like, I found someone who said yes. And when she said yes, she really made a commitment to me and my baby, and then me and my children, because she kept us together. So that's what, to me, commitment looks like as well. She didn't never give up on me. I mean, I had no credits in the 9th grade. Here it is, a single African-American woman taking a 14-year-old with a baby with no high school credits.
And I want to say that saying yes to our kids, that's really why we're here today.
Yes.
And you both are out in the community to get people to say yes to our kids in care. Beth, tell us a little bit about your time with Family Services.
You bet. So about 12 years ago, I came to social work. In essence, I was in a totally different field of work, and just felt a calling to come into social work. And so I finished my psychology degree. I studied child psychology. I was really passionate about that topic, and so I wanted to get into something where that passion, along with my desire to make a difference, could be utilized. So I was lucky enough to get into licensing about 10 years ago, and when we were licensing agents, we were able to teach the classes as well. And so I just felt like it was a perfect fit to be able to, as my adult children, would say, is to that I'm an intense person when it comes to this topic, and I just call it passion. I'm super passionate about what we do. I believe that we can make a difference. We can help people understand the why kids respond the way they do to trauma, and that can make all the difference. And so I feel blessed to be able to do what we do, getting out in the community and telling people what these kids need and what they deserve. It just really makes it easy to go to work every day. So I have been doing this for about 10 years. I'm absolutely in love with what we do, and this is the small piece of what we can do makes a difference in the lives of these kids and these families.
And really, these kids are the next generation.
For sure.
They are our future teachers and doctors and, hotel managers and everything else in between. And so, and even our future family services workers, right?
Yes.
And so we need to make sure that these kids get these rich experiences while they're temporarily in foster care. So I want to talk about, going back, and Lynn had mentioned Child Haven. Yeah. And Child Haven is our congregate care emergency shelter. Child Haven right now has about an average 75 kids on campus daily, and we're working every day. Your team, your recruitment team, is out there to talk about the importance of finding safe homes and supportive caregivers for these kids. Lynn, talk with me about the importance of growing up in a home setting versus being at Child Haven.
I mean, the biggest thing is to remember that when children are placed in the care, they just suffered grief, loss, and trauma. So the big thing is to want them to be able to process that in a place where they feel safe. So a safe place would be minimizing how many people they come in contact with. You enter Child Haven, your first day, you may have 5 or 6 staff. You see what I'm saying? 7 or 8, depending on how long you're there, what time you came in. And them being able to get to grieving quicker can be done in an actual foster home as opposed to being in congregate care. They have amazing staff at Child Haven. Like, I've watched them go above and beyond. But even in that environment, a home environment is a more safe, realistic place to process everything that happened and also be able to build bonds with people more quicker. Again, as opposed to there's so much staff at Child Haven, so many different, we got nursing staff, we got therapist staff. They're coming in contact with so many people. It's not as easy to get to their grieving process what actually happened, why it happened, and then, accept this is where I'm at right now. So it can be very challenging in a congregate care setting as opposed to if I go to a home, whether it's one parent or 2 parent, and I get more attention, I get more time spent. Child Haven is very structured, very organized. They're on schedules, but it's a little different when you can deviate depending on where you are, and then the people can address you different as opposed to being in congregate care.
And I think what you brought up about all of the children having, just experienced grief and trauma, whether they've been abused or neglected, they've all experienced the trauma of being removed from a situation that was not safe, right? That's why kids get removed from their homes. And on the flip side, while these kids are temporarily in foster care, we're working with those bio families to strengthen their situation because the ultimate goal is reunification. So Beth, you did all of this teaching, right? Teaching the classes. Tell us a little bit more about what do families learn while they're in classes? How do they learn how to help kids that have suffered this kind of trauma?
What's amazing about the classes are there's a bit of material that's threaded throughout the training. It's called TBRI, which is Trust-Based Relational Interventions. And these are, these classes are really about relationship building. They're also, relationship is the number one way to heal trauma in the brain. And so these classes are really about relationship building, also seeing behavior as a language. Our kids, show you how they think and feel. They don't use their words. And so the classes really help those families recognize those behaviors as what they are, which is symptoms, or examples of what this child's experienced. And so if you as a caregiver can kind of see that and understand that, you're more likely to parent to the needs of that child instead of using, old traditional parenting skills that maybe we grew up with that worked, but really these kids have experienced deep, significant trauma. So we need to actually meet them where they're at and recognize that that might need, new skills. That might need enhanced skills. And so the classes really help these families recognize the why when they start seeing some challenging behavior, or why when the child seems maybe sadder than the average 8, 9, 10-year-old kid. They can recognize the why, and they're able to meet that kid where they're at and really help that child start healing and recovering. Because really, during childhood is the most important time to get in there and help these kids recognize that this has happened to them, not because of them. And so if we can help these kids recognize that this isn't something that I did, this is something that's happened to me, and that child can then begin processing that stuff and recognizing, I didn't cause this. And really, attachment is vital. And that only happens through connection and meeting these kids' needs consistently. So the classes really talk about how to meet these kids' needs so that the attachment can grow and build, and that's what our kids need. They need attachment and connection.
I like that you first mentioned it's really about relationship building. And I think that Lynn mentioned that too, that, our staff at Child Haven is great. They do work to build those relationships, but nothing is like coming home after school, having a parent or a caregiver, be there to have that individualized attention, and maybe it's even having the siblings, the foster family might have their own biological children that might bond with those kids. So I think that the relationship building is key to nurturing that child's forward movement.
For sure.
What's happening next.
She touched on something that's really important too when she said that the training teaches you also to see through the children's lens. So your perspective of an interpretation of what may have happened to them looks totally different from their perspective and what happened to them. So when you have an idea of like if a kid come in and you're happy and excited, their lens look different. They're not happy and they're not excited because of what just took place. So I think it's important to recognize, too, that we sometimes have ideals. So that training piece gives you an opportunity to really walk you through what the child is thinking, what the child is feeling, the child's perspective of what happened. Because we, foster parents, they want to save and fix, but the children still also have their perception of, wait, what just happened? So it gives you an opportunity to get more insight from their lens, not what you heard, not what happened for somebody else, but a child actually you seeing it from their perspective, and you get a chance to step back and say, oh, wait, hold on, let me reassess this. You get a chance to see it from that lens as well.
And their reactions might be something that are like total curveballs that you might have not ever seen. I want to share a quick story. Raise the Future, who does our foster parent training now, they sent me some video clips that they're going to start using in the pre-service training. And there's an interview with a foster mom. And she talks about, the kids were hungry and we were out and about. And so I went to the McDonald's drive-thru, and I got the kids some food. And, I made sure that his hamburger had no condiments because he wasn't used to everything was very plain for him. And he still refused to eat. He just would not eat. He said, no, I don't need to eat today. It's okay. And the foster mom's like, of course you need to eat. And I already bought you the food. And the little boy didn't eat. And so later in the video, she explained that she felt, what the heck? I bought him this McDonald's. I made sure it was perfect for him, but he still wouldn't eat. And a couple of weeks later, the boy went up to the foster mom, and he said, the reason that I couldn't eat that McDonald's was that's a brand new McDonald's that was just being built when my mom and I were homeless in the alley behind that.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so, what a curveball, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
You could not ever know that story unless you were looking through that child's lens.
Right.
That's good.
Well, what a blessing that he felt that he could share it with her.
Yes.
Because that might be something that he internalized and never shared. And so that's maybe a tribute to her that that he felt after a little period of time that he could share with her, and and she reacted probably the right way, and not saying something like, well, that's silly or that's ridiculous. Like, that's not ridiculous. And when you see it through their lens, you can totally understand and see where they're coming from.
Yeah. And it's like, none of these children that are in foster care, like, they come with stories that are unimaginable.
For sure.
They've been through the most horrific scenes sometimes. They've seen things. They've heard things. They've witnessed things. They've lived lives that, we hope that we never have to experience.
Oftentimes, they've lived more in their 10 years than I have at my midlife, and far worse what they've experienced. And no one should go through that, but especially children.
I like to say that by the time we get them, we don't know what. Like, they may come in for one thing, but there's a whole other side and a whole other backstory. It's so much more than just sometimes what they come in with. And I like to commend our foster parents, because they find out stuff that we didn't even know, because the children build a relationship with them, learn to trust them, and our children learn to feel safe with them. And the safer they feel, the more they be okay with sharing, which helps them heal. It don't have to stay bottled up anymore. So they'll come in for one thing, but it doesn't mean they haven't been through way more and way worse by the time we get them.
Yeah, we truly believe that, like that famous book says, that, the body keeps the score. Trauma does lay down some foundations inside the body. And if we can get those out during childhood, so the kids don't have to wait until adulthood for these, kind of negative things to reveal themselves, if we can get in there and process that while kids are little, the brain is really moldable, just like trauma injures the brain, relationship heals the brain. And so if we can get in there and start healing that healing process, we can make all the difference. I truly believe that, or we wouldn't be doing what we do. It does make a difference. Having a loving family, having someone that really can meet that child where they're at, it can change that child's entire life. And that's really why we're here.
Well, the kids in foster care definitely need a little extra patience and a little extra TLC, right? And
that's good.
What is your best advice for somebody who is thinking about becoming a foster parent?
Okay.
I think, I think being open and really being humble and recognizing that, like I said, even if, you've parented 5 kids before, parenting our kids, kids that have come from trauma and hard places, is a different skill set. And you have to be humble in that, so that while you're taking the classes, while you're watching the trainings, while you're talking to other people, recognize that you don't have it figured out. You haven't cared for kids that have gone through hell and back. And to be okay with, I'm going to change my mind, or I'm going to think differently. I think that being humble is half the battle. And like you said, having patience is a lot of it. But really being able to recognize that trauma and loss and grief does injure the brain. It does. And, kids are not as resilient as people maybe, when I was growing up, thought. I think we have to recognize that trauma is painful. It does injure the brain. We have to get in there and treat it, with the seriousness that it deserves. And the only way we can do that as parents is really fully accepting that, these kids need a little extra, not just babysitting, not just taking to and from school, but true connection, true commitment, really loving them like they are your own. And that's a special skill that not everybody has. We recognize that. We're asking a lot for people to step up for our kids.
In addition to what you're saying, I think another part of that would be for us to put what we know sometime to the side, right? Come in with a clean slate. We hear a lot, we see a lot, people say a lot, but when you're working with our children and you're building that relationship, everything else has to go to the side. You got to meet them where they at, let them meet you where you at, but also be open to the ideal. I might need to look at that different, or this is nothing like I've never, had the experience through this journey, and be okay with meeting them where they are. And it doesn't matter what worked for you, what worked for your children, what worked for your sister kids. Our children need a brand new skill set and someone who's going to come with a clean slate. You got to even if you hadn't experienced before, you got to remove all that and come in with a clean slate and put all that other stuff to the side and give them an opportunity to meet you. Y'all meet together from where you are. And that makes a difference too, because I experienced a relative working with one of their nieces, and they was like, well, she wasn't like that, and they stuck to that. And I'm like, but something has happened to her. Not like if that hadn't happened previous, you was working with her from a different space. She's dealt with some trauma now, and it's significant. She's been taking from her mom now. Not that you're not good to her, and it's not personal. That's the big piece. You got to remember it's not personal. And she was struggling with but she was different. She is different. Something has happened. So you're not going to get the same person. So sometimes I think we got to remember that, they need a clean slate.
I think the don't take it personal is really good advice for any parent, but especially for brand new foster parents. And on another podcast that we host, our Courageous Caregiver podcast, I talk with foster parents. And Trevin, who actually is the owner of this beautiful studio, he said, my skill was being able to show up, try my best, and not take it personally. Yes. Because all of these behaviors, I liked what you said before, Beth, about it being we help you recognize that behavior is language. Right? Yeah, so somebody that's hurting is not necessarily going to be well, I'm hurting today, right? They're not going to say that. Yes. But what that might look like, if you're already potty trained and let's say a kindergartner that might start wetting the bed again, or, we see a lot of tummy troubles, or I feel sick, or maybe they're saying, I don't want to go to school. I have a headache. I don't feel good. Right. And so, not all of a child in foster care isn't going to come into your home and be okay, A, B, C, and D happened to me and I'm hurting, so take care of me.
I like to use the example when children go to school. So if I've been up all night, maybe my parents was up all night themselves, something was going on, some issues or concerns, right? And I've been up all night, but now I got to get up and I gotta go to school. I'm not going to go to school and look at my teacher and be like, hey, I'm tired. Please know that I'm tired. So if I put my head on the desk, it's because I'm tired. What you might see, because he's tired, is a little bullying, a little aggressive behavior. Not that they're aggressive or a bully, but I'm tired. But they can't say I'm tired. Do you see what I'm saying? So the behavior is saying I'm tired, but it looks different from the person on the outside looking in, oh, he's being mean and he's being a bully. He's probably just tired, but he can't articulate I'm tired.
Even the most well-rounded adult has a hard time vocalizing their thoughts and feelings. So children, they're just incapable at that point. They can't actually identify that this feeling is related to this thought.
Yeah, that was good.
Right. Or they might be hungry. I know I get a little hangry sometimes, right? Or they might even be something. I mean, we live in Las Vegas. It's about to be 120 degrees in 2 months. They could be very thirsty. Give them a glass of water, start with some basics to try to stabilize the child, especially if they're in your care, stabilize them,
their needs.
Their needs, their physical needs, their emotional needs, by building that relationship, and kind of work your way up until maybe they do come to you and open up. And I think the other thing that people need to remember too is if you are thinking about fostering to have the child fulfill your need.
Oh, yeah.
Right? These kids aren't going to come in and be like, oh, you're the perfect mom, right? They still love their family.
And we got a quote.
No matter what.
We got a quote. The quote is, we're trying to find families for our children, not trying to find children for families. And that's what it looks like. So we need homes for them. We don't need children for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. So let's talk a little bit about let's say I'm considering becoming a foster parent. What do I do?
Great. I think, it's a lot, I guess, it depends on your thoughts beforehand. It's a lot easier than people think. I think people will disqualify themselves before they even get started. So our goal as recruiters is to get into the community and really dispel some myths. You know, not everyone can do this. It is a huge ask. You are changing the lives of children when you say yes to kids. But at the same time, you know, there's the qualifications are some basics. You could be married, you could be single. We don't have an age limit, thank goodness. An age minimum of 21. We ask that if you're a renter or owner, it doesn't matter if it's a condo, an apartment, a house. We're okay with that. You can identify as LGBTQ. You can be a non-citizen. We ask that you're financially solvent. And we also ask that you have reliable transportation. So these are some of the basics. We're also going to ask that you have space for the child. Those are some basic qualifications. And if you're interested, we have information sessions that are all over the valley. Every week, we try to get into every corner. If not, if it's not this week, maybe it's next week. You can go on to clarkcountyfostercare.com and check out where do we have foster care information sessions. It's just about an hour and a half of material. We tell you about the logistics. We fingerprint you for free. We tell you a little bit about what goes into the trainings and where you'll go and how you'll get there. And then that hour and a half really kind of digs a little deeper into what is foster care. And then if you're interested, that's when you sign up for classes after that. So it's really, it's a couple steps just to see if this is the right fit for you to get started.
And I hear, too, that there's some new systems in place
in
becoming a foster parent. Lynn, why don't you tell me about the new systems that we're using?
So we're using Benti. Benti is a new program where we're definitely going to keep all our information now. We're trying to do away with the paper process, actually, which is a good thing. So you can actually fill out your application. You're going to upload documents in Benti.
It used to be a more tedious process. Now you can fingerprint right at the information session, and you can start working on your application immediately.
We're here to help you and support you during your journey. So there's no wrong question. You can't call us too much. We're here to support you. So if you call us and say, hey, I know we did it in class, but we're going to do it, whatever questions you have. And remember, that's what the information session is for. If you have a list of 10 questions, we want you to show up at the information session and ask those questions. That information session is for you to ask your questions, anything you're not sure about, anything you heard, right? Let's get it clarified. That's what the information session is for as well.
And I know that there's also some special information sessions a few times a year where foster parents come and talk.
Yes.
Beth, tell me what that looks like and what kind of information the foster parents have to share.
Beautiful. Yeah, we try to, there's about 3 to 4 a year. We call them kind of like a specialized foster care information session. All we're trying to do is just kind of elaborate. We feel the information session is pretty informative, and so all we want to do is enhance it. So about 3 to 4 times a year, we will bring in a panel of foster parents or we call them foster parent champions. They'll sometimes come, and they're there to really enhance what we already talk about, the logistics. But we also include these folks so that they can give their perspective, because we're staff, we get it. And sometimes hearing another perspective from actual foster parents or foster parent champions can make the information session that much more informative. And so we are blessed to be able to do that in the community. We've kind of picked different random places to do that. You can check out where these are held by signing up for an information session, and you can see which ones are going to be enhanced and which are standard. So we're hopefully going to have another one maybe in the spring or in the fall, but we just got done with one, and it was amazing.
I think that pointing out when we say specialized, we're talking about we had one and we had some LGBTQ on our panel, and I think an amazing question that was asked was, how do you address if the parents have a concern about it being the same-sex parents in the home? And the panel's response was amazing. And it was light bulb moment. It's the kids that seldom question. Once they get explained to what's happening, it's usually the parents that be more opposed to it as the children, because the person asks, well, what do the kids say and what do the kids think? So I think when we do specialize, when we do more targeted, we have a Spanish one that's more specialized, where it's all for Spanish families that can come in, hear from Spanish-speaking foster parents. So when we say specialized, it's more centered around Pacific information and Pacific things. We do doing it with the stars. I think it also have an opportunity where we bring more resources that the specialized ones do, because we want our foster parents to be aware of what's in the community that's available to them. We have a lot of free stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about the resources. Tell me some of the resource providers, because I know as recruiters, when you're out and you're in the community, I know you go to like festivals and church events and, community events. You guys are all over the place, ball games, soccer games.
Yes.
Like, you are now becoming the face of foster care throughout the Valley and beyond. If you come and you meet both of you and say, hey, maybe a foster parent isn't for me, but I can provide a resource. What kind of resources are we looking for?
I mean, we can start with, what the agency provides. So the agency provides a whole section of staff that's called foster parent champions. These are folks that are either fostered or are fostering right now, but are also employees. And these guys are really there to support the foster family. They are the ones that reach out after someone says yes to one of our kids. They check in with them. They remind them about the resources that are available in the community. So the foster parent champions is kind of like the first line of resources. And then beyond that, we will connect these families with WIC, with Urban League, child care providers that accept Urban League. We will connect them with support groups. We recommend that because really the number one way to stay connected to being a foster parent is to have a support network. And so we connect folks with other like-minded foster parents. We want to make sure that they feel supported, and we show them ways to do that. We have something called Foster Change. There's something called Foster Connect. We also connect them with gently used and or new items through something called Hannah's Closet. We have Peggy's Attic. We have the Beacon. These are 3 different, basically, locations that are built by donations in the community that are meant to service foster parents, adoptive parents, kinship parents. And so we recommend that these families go to all of these places, connect with all of these people to really feel surrounded by support, because it does take a village. It is a challenge.
Well, and it can be expensive too, right?
Yes.
So knowing that there's all these supports that are out there in the community to help provide clothing or backpacks or shoes, whatever it might be.
For sure.
Let's talk about the support that foster parents receive. Are foster parents paid?
They are, but we don't want to call it they're being paid. They're not. They're being reimbursed.
Yeah.
And words matter, right? So when you say someone's being paid, that's a job. That's not what we do. Foster care is not a job. Foster care is a calling. It's a commitment. It's connections. And so reimbursement basically is exactly as it sounds. You are being reimbursed for some of the costs that you will incur when you care for children. Is it enough? It depends on who you ask, but it does help, right? And we, as an agency, don't tell you what to utilize those funds specifically for, but we hope it's going to be in service of those kids. The new pair of shoes, the power bill goes up a little bit, right? The food bill goes up a little bit. We hope they're going to use that reimbursement to, kind of shore up that commitment to that child. That's just the financial aspect. But in addition to that, the agency does at least 4 huge events a year that really kind of are meant to benefit the child and the family. So we have a back to school event where our kids are loaded with back to school supplies and kind of gear them up for a great year. We have actually a graduation event. When our kids graduate, we want to celebrate. So we as an agency do everything we can to show these kids how important that celebration is. We also have an amazing event during Christmas time called Give Joy, so that every one of our kids gets a special, gift for them. And then we also have the spring event. With the spring event, we get to celebrate Easter, but we also get to show these families that are caring for our kids right now the wealth of resources that are in the community. So yes, the kids are getting Easter bunny and Easter eggs, but we also remind these folks that sometimes forget about the resources because they're overloaded, or they got their busy lives. So we just kind of bring those resources out at least once a year to show them, look at all these places you can connect with and get the support you need.
And also with foster parent champions, they will, if you don't understand how to fill out the WIC information, you can call them and they'll walk you through it. If you don't understand how to fill out the Urban League paperwork, foster parent, they are your champions, and they understand what you've been through. They've experienced some of the stuff. And so they are there to champion for our foster parents. And I also like to acknowledge that our kids' medical is free. You do not accrue a single amount of expenses when it comes to medical, dental, vision, all of it is covered when you foster our children. So you don't even have that expense as well.
That's good to know. And I want to say something else wonderful about our foster parent champions is each one of them has like their own hidden talent, something special about them. Like we have Katie, who is like the baby whisperer. If you have a baby, maybe a drug exposed baby that you just can't seem to call Katie. She will come over to your home and help figure out which is, how you can soothe this child and meet the child's needs, right? We have foster parent champions who are great with teens that are like really resourceful, that know how to work with some, difficult behaviors. Because let's face it, it is not easy. But these foster parent champions, they've been there. They've done this work. And so when you call their hotline as a foster parent, you're getting somebody on the other line that has been in those shoes and walked the walk.
For sure.
That's great. It's a great
and
program.
Then as far as the events, I love that you mentioned that. We're planning our spring event right now, and we have about 30 resources coming, and we're still gaining resources. So one thing I will say about Las Vegas and Clark County, we are in an incredible community that really cares about our kids and wants to help, right?
Like, the plus to
everybody
that is
steps up.
Learning the places our kids get to go for free.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of places, right? Like Sequest is one of them. Like knowing that, and we have that information, and so do foster parent champions. So the code too is, as a foster parent, do not hesitate to ask for anything you feel you may need. We're not promising to deliver anything, but we only know how to help our foster parents when they let us know that they need help. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so I've heard the panel of foster parents say time and time again, ask questions, ask for help, ask for what you need.
Yes.
Yeah, the only way that we know what you need is when you let us know. But I think this is, reminder that we do need support as caregivers, and that may mean reaching out to a support group. That may mean, reaching out to a neighbor that's fostered in the past. It's really about, kind of seeking the support that you need, because some people need a lot and some people need a little, but recognizing that you will need it. This is a challenge. This is a challenge, not in a bad way. You're going to need to go out and have fun with your person, right? You're going to need someone to be with the kids so you can remember that you're an individual too. And so I think support is a big part of it, for the good and the bad.
Our training, we talk about self-care. We make sure, and some people's ideal of self-care looks different, but a part of the training, when they go through the training, they do talk about self-care and the importance of what that looks like for you individually. Because we got some across the board stuff, but it really, during the training, you really get a chance to reflect on what do that look like for you, which is a big thing. We want you to be able to take care of yourself.
You have to take care of yourself so you can take care of others. So, okay, let's say that I'm like on the fence. I'm really not sure after meeting you all at the ball game or the festival, wherever I met you. I'm not sure that I'm ready to be a foster parent. Are there other ways that I can help?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, for sure. We're actually on a mission to spread awareness about that, about the fact that there's 100 ways, but there's 6 that we can talk about. Raising awareness in the community, that's a huge help to us as recruiters. Maybe you want to donate. Maybe you want to donate gently used items. Maybe you want to donate new items. Maybe you want to volunteer. Maybe you want to volunteer with us at Peggy's Attic or Child Haven. You could consider, becoming a CASA. And if you're not familiar with what that is CASA is a court-appointed special advocate. These are people that represent our kids in the legal realm, right? They go into the courtroom and they actually sit on the stand so the kids don't have to. So becoming a CASA, indirectly but directly, helps our kids.
We actually invited CASA into the studio. So if you want to learn more about becoming a CASA, check out our episode when we feature CASA, and we have their volunteer coordinator and a CASA who actually works with kids going to court.
I just wanted to end that with the 6th item is really becoming a proud partner. If you are a business and maybe you can't, you can't help on a small scale, that's okay. We got some big opportunities for you. Maybe you want to sponsor. Maybe you want to donate to an event. Maybe you want to let us come to your business and talk to your staff. Maybe you're willing to put our electronic flyer into your electronic newsletter that goes out to your sponsors or your families. I mean, really just spreading awareness about the need in the community is a huge gift to us and to the kids. I don't know if everyone knows how critical the need is. And so those are some ways that you can help.
To expand on that, if you have an event that we can come table at, then we could just set up. We don't typically ask people to step outside. We just want to be included. We just want to be a part of, right? Being able to do things like speak to congregations at the church. There's a lot of people that sit in the congregations, don't know where to start. A lot of people come from different states, and they like, I want to foster, but then they don't know where to start, so they don't do anything. We're learning that people need to be educated and more informed, so giving us a platform, giving us a space, time and opportunity to be able to table. Like setting up at the volleyball game, Vegas Thrill, has been fun, and we do that for baseball, being able to go meet families and hear them say stuff like, oh my God, it's something that we've been thinking about. We didn't know where to begin. So that's a brightening us to know that, wow, the more we're out there and the more you guys can give us an opportunity. If you're doing a community event, if you are out somewhere, or you at church and you'd be like, oh, they can come speak at our church. We're looking for all those different types of opportunities, but also businesses can do drives for our families, safety drives, kid items that we'll pick them up, or we can help supply a location for drop off. But it's so many different ways, like Beth said, to get involved, and just it's the little things. I was speaking this weekend, and the lady spoke up about buying dinner for foster parents, and the lady spoke up and said, oh my God, when my mom would offer to do dinner that night because she had foster kids in her home, she literally got tears in her eyes just talking about, like, it's a big difference. So, I mean, if you can provide a dinner, like every little thing towards helping get new foster parents, but also helping us retain and support the ones we have, is options available for you to get in there and help support.
And these retention efforts are huge. Because we can recruit all day long. We can license, we're licensing about 180 families a year. But, Las Vegas is a transient city. We have a couple Air Force bases. People come and go. But if you're here in Vegas and you're here to stay for quite some time, we want you to foster. We want you to be with us. And I think that all of these retention efforts and the way the community has really embraced our kids and our families in the past couple of years, we've seen less people leaving, closing their licenses. Yeah. And most of the licenses that close are for good reasons, for celebration, right? For adoptions.
When people say why we don't retain,
reunifications.
They need to remember that sometimes we're not retaining, because if we got 20 foster parents that adopted our kids, because sometimes that happens then sometimes they close their license, so we don't count that in the foster care account. So that's a part of it too. It's good reasons why homes close as well. That's what I wanted to say.
Feeling supported is one of the number one reasons why people do stay. Feeling supported or lack of support is I'm a researcher, and honestly, that's the number one factor, is feeling supported in what you do and your commitment to our kids, and really, I think it's what you kind of put into it. If you have a realistic expectation about what you're doing, and you do know that you need help, ask for it, and ask for those people to come up, because I think those people that are giving the support, it helps them. Yeah. It really does. And
they want to know
they want to be a part
helping.
of it. Yeah, they want to be a part of it.
Yeah. So I want to touch on one last concept, and that's reunification. Mm-hmm. If I'm thinking about becoming a foster parent, but I'm scared to say goodbye, what do you what do you say to people that feel
normal.
that way?
One, to know that that's normal. That's the biggest piece, to know that you're not going to be criticized if you got a kid and you feel like you want to hold on to it. That's part of the journey, is saying that you may not want to let a child go. From experience, though, I will say, one, I like to say to my parents that call me and be like, oh my God, Lynn, I don't want to let them go. And I plant the seed that everything that you gave that child, remember, another child needs it. And how fate would work two different families that actually was upset about returning a child, but they did, and they found out it wasn't as bad as they thought. See, remember, it's the thinking about it first, right? And when they realized, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, but in my mind, it was going to be like getting my heart ripped out. Actually seeing one of them like months later after they called me crying and upset, and just hearing her say like, wow, I did it again, and bumping into her at a party with two other kids, because I had taken my son to a Halloween party, showed me that you can stay in the race. But remember that other children need it, but it's normal to feel that way. We don't want anybody to feel like it's a bad thing.
I always said at the end of our classes, because everyone has that fear. I mean, you're not a human being if you're not afraid of that. But honestly, if it doesn't hurt, you probably did it wrong. Right? I think that when connection happens, whether it's, at summer camp or whether it's, going from 4th grade to 5th grade, there is loss as we grow, right? And I think what you have to remember is what you've given them can never be taken away. And you may never know the beautiful impact you've made on that child's life. You may know when they turn 30 and they reach out to you through Facebook. Who knows? But really, what you've provided can never be taken away. You've shown that child that they're worthy, that they're loved, and that is priceless. And you have to recognize that, if it hurts, you probably did it right.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
I think like my foster mom didn't hear a lot about how I felt, like the roots that she planted until after she left.
Yeah.
After I left, she became my forever family. So when Christmas came, I looked for them, her and her family, right? When the holidays came, when certain things happened, and what made it even more special is she would include, like if she's making food, she made food for my family, right? But the key things about things that she planted, things that she instilled, I didn't tell her till years later, like, oh, remember this? Or remember you showed me this? Or remember you did that? And also, me working in homes with teens and kids, it would be shocking when, even if they caused a disruption, they would be like, oh, my foster mom and my foster dad, and it would be on, that they would be like, and then sometimes they have realizations that the foster parent did more than what they thought because all the surface stuff was happening, right?
And perspective's everything, right?
Yes.
As we age, we can kind of reflect back on things that have happened in childhood or during our youth and say, oh my gosh, wow, this person really was there for me.
Yeah, so you may not never hear it as a foster parent. You may not never hear
the fruit of your labor.
Yes, but I'm telling you, it's there. And they'll remind you too.
We've all had experiences of mentors in our life, and that's really what you're doing as a foster parent. You're mentoring. Yes, you're parenting all day. Yes, you are. But really, what you're doing is what mentors do, which is taking someone under your wing, showing them they have potential, that they are, that the sky's the limit. And so, if you can see yourself as a mentor to children, and recognizing your impact, whether it's like through coaching or teaching. Oftentimes it is, it's hard to get that recognition, but that's not why we do it. You're doing it to change that child's life, and just know that you have.
And to strengthen the family, right?
For sure.
We want to make sure that while the kids are temporarily in care, that the biological family is being supported and that they can also build a relationship with our foster families.
But they kind of model sometime for our birth parents what certain things look like. If they provided certain structure that wasn't there at first, put things in place for children, like when they go back home, they could say, hey, this would work, this what didn't work. They take that with them a lot of the times, and you are modeling how to, sometimes there's a lot of dysfunction, right, when children end up in care. So our foster parents model what different type of functioning look like for our birth parents, and they appreciate it more than people think they do. They be grateful that someone has came in, loved and protected their children, but also supported them getting their children back.
Yeah, I truly believe that, when people know better, they do better. And sometimes that has to happen. Sometimes your rock bottom is different than mine. And so, some of these birth parents were once foster children themselves. We have to recognize that no one's perfect. And that, until we're shown otherwise, we truly believe that when mom and dad, work to get their children back, they should get their children back. And we're there to support them throughout that process. And we hope that the foster parents are along for that journey.
And I wanted to bring up the same video that I told you before about Raise the Future and the woman and the McDonald's and the child. there's another clip of her saying, it came time for reunification for my first child in foster care. And, you know, I was so scared to say goodbye, and I didn't think that they were ready to go back home. But on the day of reunification, and when I brought the child over to the house, all of the aunties and uncles and cousins and grandma and grandpa and mom and dad were there. Everybody was there to welcome the child back home. And she said, who am I as a foster parent to keep this child
For sure.
from all the people that love this child?
Oh, that was good.
Right? Again,
Yeah.
reunification is not like self-serving.
Yeah.
You know, you're not fostering to, you know, have this child in your life forever. You're fostering to strengthen that biological family, to give that child the support, you know, when it's safe to do so, to model that positive behavior and those positive parenting skills for that bio family.
They may have not seen anything else, though. They probably only know what they know. They've only been exposed to what they've been exposed to, and then foster parents give them opportunity to step outside of what they grew up with, all they know. So it changes the dynamics for them.
Absolutely. And I have another foster family that we have tell the story. It's called The Road to Reunification. It's on our Clark County YouTube foster care playlist. And it's a story of a biological family who had 9 children, and the 5 oldest were with one foster caregiver, and the 4 youngest were with another. And the foster dad, who had the teens, would invite the younger foster kiddos over and the biological parents every Sunday for a big family meal. And when our foster parents can recognize that those types of visitations, that type of tight communication. I mean, even when we were planning on filming this video, and I said to him via text, you know, do you think you could reach out to bio mom and dad to see if they'd want to be involved? And 2 minutes later, he texts me back, yes, I've already texted them, they're in. That's how I could tell right away that they are like this.
Yeah.
They are tight. And so when our foster parents are coming in and they want to be the hero and, you know, change this and save this and do that for the kids, they often forget that you're really kind of taking on supporting the whole family, because you've still got to get the kids to have a relationship with their biological families. When it's safe to do so through visitation. Maybe when it's not safe, then it's a little more structured, like a supervised visitation. But the relationship that I saw with this family, and research shows that when kids are able to visit with their families while, you know, the kids are in foster care, those families are working hard on their reunification plan. They're going to counseling. They're getting their housing. They're getting stable employment because they see their kids. They're in contact with them. They're working hard.
Yeah.
And the most touching part of that video is when one of the teens said, I know that they were working hard to get me back.
It's huge.
And they knew it, right? They could see it. Because of the relationship, though, right?
And they felt safe. They felt safe because they knew that their parents trusted the foster parent.
That's good, that trust piece. And you know what? Kids can be kids in those environments, right? They don't have to pick and choose where to place their loyalty. They know that they could spread it between the two and then not be tug of war. Like when kids are in environments where their adults are getting along, they could just be kids because they don't have to be loyal over here or feel like they got to place their loyalty over here. It all comes together.
They don't have to micromanage the relationship like a tug of war.
And that's important.
It
That's
is
a big
important.
thing.
It is
It's a big
important.
thing.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. I really appreciate the work that both of you do in our community to help, you know, make sure that kids have safe homes and make sure that people that are thinking about fostering are educated, inspired, and knowledgeable, and you know that we are doing our best to prepare them as much as they can.
Yeah.
So do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with us today?
Yeah, these kids are our future. right? And so we got to be part of the change we want to see in the future. And that means stepping up. That means, kind of sacrificing, doing for others maybe that, you wouldn't do for yourself, really recognizing these kids deserve better. And so that's our goal, is to tell the community how they can do that. How can these, kids get what they deserve, which is to be treated like the little angels that they are.
I like to say it does take a village. It takes a village to raise a child. And I remember growing up before, things happened with me being removed out of my home. The neighbor could straighten me up, and it wasn't a penalty. The neighbor could see me if I was doing something wrong. The neighbor could be like, Lynn, you know better, and I would straighten up. Going to church, the people at the church could give me advice or tell my foster mom about something that they didn't feel was okay. And it was safe enough to do that. So I understand the village. I like to say it takes a village, but we as a community as a whole, whether it's the church, faith-based community, the business community, whatever that community is, we are the village.
We are the village, yes. And we hope that everybody out there today has gained a little more knowledge and a little more understanding, so that way you can say yes to our children, our babies, our teens, our sibling groups that are in foster care. It's easier than ever to become a foster parent in Clark County. Start your journey at clarkcountyfostercare.com. Join us for an information session. You'll probably meet one of these lovely ladies. And then at that information session, you'll have an opportunity to build your foster care profile through our new online application called Binti. And we hope that you tune in again on our Foster Leader podcast.